I think we might have to, all right, we're good to go. Hold on. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining this dynamic conversation hosted by the National Association for Family Childcare on pressing business topics for family childcare owners. My name is Erica Phillips, the Executive Director of NAFCC, and I'll be our moderator for today's conversation. As the CEO of your family childcare program, we want to make sure you have the latest information from experts and your peers. Today, we are exploring your frequently asked questions about retirement. Unfortunately, too many family childcare educators work tirelessly caring for children and families, but the lack of resources for childcare often means they may lack the economic cushion to comfortably retire. We will get into the ins and outs of saving for retirement, when is the best time to get started on your retirement journey, and other resources that you should know about. We know you have many commitments, so we're grateful you are spending this time with us, and we promise the next 30 minutes will be worth your time. For today's conversation on retirement, we are joined by 3 experts. We have Gary Romano, who is the President and CEO of Civitas Strategies. Hi, Gary.
Good. Well, glad to be here.
And we have Diane Coggins, a family childcare owner and educator in Georgia, and NAFCC's Georgia State Representative, and alumni of the Leaders Shaping Leaders Fellowship Program.
Hello,
Hi,
everyone.
Diane.
Hello.
And we have Cheryl Hudsonbyler, family childcare owner and educator of Munchkin Land in Montana, co-founder of the Montana Family Childcare Network, NAFCC's Montana State Representative and member of the Accreditation Council, and she is also an alumni of the Leaders Shaping Leaders Fellowship Program.
Hello,
Hi,
everyone.
Cheryl. Thank you all for coming here today to share your insights and perspectives into retirement for family childcare. So my first question to get us started is, what options do I have to save for my retirement as a family childcare educator? Gary, can you help us respond to this question that we hear often from family childcare programs all over the country?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, the easy answer is too many, right? Like there's a lot of different choices. And sometimes when you look at it, it can be totally overwhelming because you look at it and you say, there's so many different options here. How do I know what I need and what is what? And so I would say, typically we recommend breaking down the landscape a couple of ways, right? So one, the biggest difference is what they call tax deferred or tax free, right? Don't get your hopes up about tax free. Everything gets taxed, right? It's really a question of when, right? So tax deferred means that you're not paying taxes on it now. So you don't pay taxes now. Remember I said you don't get away with not paying taxes. So you pay it on the other end. So you pay it when you retire. Tax-free, or what we also call tax exempt, right, is that, I'm sorry, I just totally messed that up. So tax deferred, right? You don't pay taxes now. I mean, you totally messing this up now. Tax-free, don't pay taxes now, or you do pay taxes now, you don't pay them in retirement. Tax deferred, you don't pay taxes now, you do pay them in retirement. And that's those two differences, now that I've been able to spew them out, are two of the biggest differences that you're going to see in the various types of investments you could be making, right? So for example, you'll hear a lot of providers talk about a Roth IRA, which is a great product, right? And that's an example of, a tax exempt. So you're putting money in after tax money that you've already paid income tax on, and you put that in, but all the money you make as it invests, it comes out tax-free. And that can be very powerful, especially if you are a younger provider. Roth is great for any age, but especially if you're a younger provider, all of that money that you may make in interest in investments, tax-free on the other end. On the other hand, when we talk about a tax deferred, that could be a traditional IRA in many cases. We often talk about SEP IRAs, which is a type of business IRA that's a great option, solo 401ks, which are a great option. And again, in those cases, you're getting the tax deduction now. Now, all the money you make gets taxed on the other end when you're in retirement. But remember, typically, you're making less in retirement. You're in a lower tax bracket. So it's still not a bad deal. So those are some of the major divisions, right, that you're going to see. And then within that, you'll hear us often talk a lot about Roth, SEPs, and solo 401ks. We're going to offer you some resources that are free later that can kind of parse it out. But those are some of those options that I would really take a close look at, because in traditional IRAs, those sorts of things that are low to no cost typically, so you're not having your retirement getting eaten out by a big company along the way, and tend to be the best deal for you. Conversely, anything that you hear that's some form of insurance, and that's like a whole nother show we could do, I would stay away from. Mathematically, they're much better for the broker than they are for you. So just kind of giving you some options and a lay of the land there.
Great. Thank you, Gary, for expanding our different options. Cheryl, I want to turn it to you and ask, what have you done to get started in saving for retirement?
So 9 years ago, I started a traditional IRA. I had nowhere to start, so I did go to a company, a financial planner, and looked to see what my options were. I'm a very conservative person because it scares me, so very conservative. But I made the decision that I could put $100 in there a month. That's just an automatic withdrawal, and they take care of that for me. I also have a savings accounts, 2 different types of savings accounts set up for my business and one for my personal, which I'm always putting money into if I'm not needing it for expenses. So I am building my retirement slowly but surely. But I'm still young. I'm still young. I still have a few years left. So it's coming along.
Thank you, Cheryl. That's so helpful to hear how you set up different accounts and stick to that schedule every month. And so you don't even have to think about it. The money just automatically goes into your retirement account. Diane, can you share a little bit of what options you've pursued?
Yes, my journey started 7 years ago with a financial planner. And we started with a plan and a goal that would ensue paying off my house, paying off credit cards, vehicles, saving money through IRAs, CDs, savings, and various investments. So that's where I started and completed my goals. So I'm at a close to retirement phase at this point.
That's great. That's great. And so Diane worked with a financial planner to map out in 7 years how to get to retirement with really clear milestones and deliverables. Thank you so much for sharing that. So what if you are, we're speaking to somebody who's either new to family childcare or has even been doing family childcare for a while and approaching retirement. How do you get started? What strategies would you recommend family childcare educators take to get started on preparing for retirement? And Diane,
Okay.
I'll come back to you and ask you to share.
Okay. I would say make a plan and then start saving. That's the best way to go. Little baby steps. There's nothing, you don't have to do anything major, anything big. Just set aside your money in a savings account. You can start there if you want to. You can plan and you can invest for you, because everybody's situation will be different. But the main thing to do first is to take action. That's what I would suggest. Take action, take those baby steps.
And Diane, just to come back to you, because I know you did use a financial planner. Can you share with us, how did you find your financial planner and what things should you look in for a financial planner?
Okay. Actually, I've had this financial planner since I started my childcare business. But just the past 7 years, she started focusing on retirement. So I've had her all along, and I found her through, she came to one of a seminar. I was at a seminar and I found her through a seminar. And so at that point, I hired her when I started my daycare business many, many moons ago. And like I said, just this past 7 years is when she started to focus my finances on retirement. So that was actually her vision, her plan. I just sort of followed suit. But I wasn't even 7 years ago, I didn't even think about a retirement plan. But she put it forth, and I worked diligently to get it done, to do the steps that it took. And I'm glad I did. So
That's inspiring, Diane. Thank you for sharing that. Cheryl, what would you say to somebody who is just starting out and has not started to save for retirement so far?
So I think they need to, they need to sit down and need to look at their expenses. Like Diane said, debt free. Once you pay off that car, and I'm just going to use this as an example because we know this is not the price of our payments now. But if we're sending $300 in for your car payment every month and you have your car paid off now, that's $300 you can now put into a savings account. So just those baby steps, paying off a credit card, taking that monthly payment you're sending and putting that into a savings account, that adds up, and as you see that savings account grow, you start to get that confidence that you are going to make it. You're going to become financially sound in your retirement years. So that's one thing to look at. And then sometimes we have to think about what expenses do we not really need to have going? Do we not need to be having, can we downsize that cell phone bill? Can we downsize that internet or that cable bill? Looking at yourself financially, looking at your expenses, looking at the expenses in your business and seeing if there's something you can downsize. Do we need to have, do you need to have all of that construction paper every month, or can we use up that supply a little bit before adding to it? It's something that you have to sit down and take stock in what you have.
Thank you. Thank you, Cheryl. Gary, do you have anything to add to what Diane and Cheryl have shared? Are there any best practices or rules of thumbs that someone just starting in this should know?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I would say more underlining what both Diane and Cheryl said, because it's like a textbook case. It's perfect, right? So, one of the things to keep in mind is that, when you talk to most experts, and I feel like this number is a little high. And when we were preparing for this, Diane said, it always differs, right? The amount you need in retirement. And that's absolutely true. It's very individualized, but a good rule of thumb is about 80% of your pre-retirement income you're going to want to have post-retirement year after year. So if you're making, let's say, $35,000, that's $28,000 a year after year, which I know can be daunting, right? But what it does say is, doing the things that both Diane and Cheryl had said are exactly the best practices, right? Start with something, start doing something. Pay off debt if you can. Chances are your debt interest is better than any investment you can get. And when you do pay it off, do exactly what Cheryl said, right? Now, like, you reinvest it in yourself, right? So instead of sending it off to Detroit or Tokyo or wherever your car maker is, right now you're putting it in your account for you, and you don't notice it, right? Because you've already adjusted to that lifestyle. Another thing we heard was what financial planners call constant dollar investments, right? So in other words, it means investing the same amount month after month. And some people will say to you, but what if the market is up down or whatever? Statistically, they found for whatever reason, when you do that, it comes out above average in terms of pricing. So statistically, you are better off doing that year after year. You know, I would think about how those small amounts add up. You know, the way that retirement works so effectively is what's called compound interest, which means the amount that you make off the money, because you're not touching it, stays in your account, and then you get interest not only on the amount you put in, but now you get interest on the interest. So for example, let's say you're 37 right now and you plan to retire at 67, right? The Social Security retirement age. You put in $50 a month. And I know sometimes that feels like a lot, but I think a lot of people, what we found in our coaching and working with providers is $50 a number a lot of providers can get their hands around in a month. 30 years, when you're ready for retirement, you've now put in $18,000. Because of compound interest, the total in your account is going to be $55,000. That's the power of saving constantly and getting that money in there. You know, the only thing I would add, you know, beyond that is that there are a number of tax credits out there that help you as well. So for example, and these just got revamped for this tax year for 2023. So for example, the savers credit just went up, right? You can get up to 50% of the amount that you're putting aside for retirement, up to $1,000, right? So for example, if you do a $2,000 contribution, let's say, to your retirement, between the money that you're saving, and it's tax deductible this year, between the money that you're going to save in taxes, between the credit, essentially, you're only really going to be putting in $454. So between those things that you're going to be getting back and the tax savings you're going to have, so for $454, you can get $2,000 in your account. Not a bad deal. And there's also programs, if you have W-2 employees, which I know some of you do, depending on your state, there's also credit programs for that, which again, make it a fraction of the cost. So make sure that if you are doing it, you know, talk to your tax preparer, make sure they're doing those tax credits for you.
Thank you, Gary. That math did make sense to me. If you can have that earn off of that investment. A number of family child care educators I've talked to have questions around Social Security and when is the best time to start claiming Social Security benefits and any other considerations that they should be thinking about that program. So I'll start with Cheryl, if you could share with me how you are thinking about Social Security as a part of your retirement plan.
So I actually had this conversation this last year with my financial planner. You know, because I printed out my Social Security statement from the Social Security website, and everyone should do that. You should really go in and look at your Social Security statement and see where you're at. On there, when I first did it years ago, I noticed that I did not have enough credits to be able to collect Social Security when I retired. So, you know, that's where our self-employment tax goes into. That goes towards your credits to be able to collect Social Security. You have to have 40 working credits to collect Social Security at retirement age. We had that conversation, and his advice to me was to do not collect Social Security while you are working. Let that work for you. And then the big thing is when you hit 65, sign up for Medicare. Get on your Medicare. At age 67, you're able to collect 100% of your Social Security, and then it goes up a little bit as each year after that. So that's something to look at is to look at your ages. You know, when you want to plan, look, that statement will tell you what you can collect at 65, what you can collect at 67, 68, 70. So look at those numbers and see what you think you're going to be comfortable with at that time.
Great, thank you, Cheryl. And I do think a lot of family child care programs as self-employed we'll learn a lot by looking at the Social Security credits. And so that's a great suggestion on that. Diane, do you have anything else to add around the use of Social Security and your plans for retirement, things people should be aware of?
I think Cheryl is spot on. I couldn't add anything or take anything away from it. My the decision to take Social Security was embedded in my 7-year plan, and that was suggested to me for age 67. So that's the route, that will be taken because, just because that's the full retirement. So I think that's all I can really add to it, because it's an individual. Some providers are single, some providers are married, everybody's in a different kind of bracket. So I think look into it as Cheryl suggested, by starting with your Social Security credit information, number of credits you have eligible, and going from there. Yeah.
Thank you, Diane. And Gary, do you want to add anything or underline anything that you've heard?
Yeah, just mainly underlining, right? Like, these are great points. 67, if you're born after 1960, that's your retirement age. It's optimal for your benefits, right? You can certainly, if you wait to retire after that, you can certainly get more, right? Like if you wait until you're 70. But for most people, it's the right age. You can also, retire earlier, like at 62. The challenge that a lot of people don't realize is it permanently reduces your benefits by 25 to 30%, depending on your age. So that means that's gone forever. And part of that is because the Social Security Administration is saying, well, you're going to be around longer and retired longer, right? But part of that is also a little bit of a penalty baked in there, because they're saying, well, you're getting out of the workforce early. That's your choice. So keep that in mind. Again, as both ladies said, keep an eye on those credits. And I know that it makes it a bit dynamic, because you'll often hear myself and other people say, maximize your deductions, and you should, but also think about the stage in life, not only in terms of building up those Social Security credits, which all come out of the but also mortgages, other things, that's your income. And so that's an important thing to remember. Last thing I would say is just keep in mind that even under the best circumstances, and Social Security is great, but it is typically not enough to retire on. So, this should be either supplemental or like your plan C or D down the line, right? So please don't get the impression of, well, gosh, if I could just sprint to 67, everything's going to be great. Typically it isn't, right? And that you're going to need some money to supplement that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So we've been talking a lot around what individual family childcare educators can do. I think there's a role for other groups. How can states or early care and education agencies and systems support family childcare educators in saving for retirement? Gary, can you share? I know you've done some research and work around this. Can you share any promising ideas from your work?
Absolutely. I mean, what we found, and we've done hundreds of these consultations with providers through our work in different states. And what we keep coming back to again and again is that the biggest barrier is information. If we talk about taxes or other types of support for providers, there are other challenges, right? But with retirement, the biggest challenge is having the information. One, no longer being scared, right? As both ladies said, like, you got to just dive into the pool and take a chance, right? And get going. Having a sense of what are some of the best products before you talk to somebody. So you come in as a consumer who has all the information that she needs in that conversation. And, and also having a sense of what are some of those other benefits, like the tax credits that you should be asking about. So, what we found is with states and ECE systems being able to share information, and we'll have some pieces that we'll talk about in a little bit, that are free to use, with the childcare businesses that you're working with. But sharing that information is what's most crucial. And then taking the next step of working with an entity or an individual, right? It doesn't have to be that everyone hires a financial planner. That's great if you can, but even like, Fidelity, Vanguard, Charles Schwab, they all do a good job. And the fees now are getting to a point where they're either zero or very little. So then getting that movement. So the biggest thing is activating people and getting them out there with the information they need.
Great. Thank you, Gary. Diane, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Yes, I often thought it would be a miracle or miraculous if the states would offer credit unions to family child care providers that would allow them, lower fees. They could get IRAs, CDs, loans, just on and on and on. And I think that's a great financial revenue starting out for family child care providers. They can start out young working with the credit union, and by the time they reach a certain age, they could be pretty well set up. I think they just don't have those financial tools readily at hand, to enable them to do those types of things. That's just a big dream.
It's a great dream.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What an incredible idea, that it would be really transformational if there were banking institutions, financial institutions that really understood family child care. Cheryl, do you have anything to add to this question?
So I love the idea of a credit union. It being a self-employed individual, it is hard to get those loans in the hoops that we have to jump through, and being able to have that support would be great. I'm going to agree with Gary 100% on the education. I'm in my 50s now. 9 years ago, when I got into our state's QRIS, is when, we're talking about retirement plans. That's in my BAS. It's what I needed to look into. So if education can come around when you're starting a child care facility about retirement, because as we all know, we're the lowest paid profession on the planet. Education could start with writers. I think that would be great. That just read that's one more step in that professionalism in childcare.
Thank you, Cheryl, for that. And in addition to education and these ideas, I do want to lift up that there's at least one instance of seeing states invest in retirement for family childcare. In July, Child Care Providers United, which represents family childcare programs across California, had reached a tentative agreement for significant investment from the state, including $80 million per year for retirement, as well as a study to look further into retirement benefits. And so, we're hoping to see more movement like that in investing to make sure that family childcare, given the importance of the work that family childcare does, that they could have retirement that matches the value that they provide while they're caring. So this has been a great conversation with lots of ideas, conversations. There are probably questions that are on different, people's minds. I just want to end by asking you all, what other tips, advice, or resources do you have for family childcare educators looking towards retirement? And I'll start with Gary, and then we can go right to Diane and Cheryl. So Gary, do you want to share with us?
I mean, a few tips, right? As we were just talking previously, go online, right? if you have somebody who's a great financial planner like Diane does, that's wonderful. Use them, but don't feel like you have to search a million different places to start this journey and to get and to set up an account. They're super easy to do. Keep an eye on those fees and how much they're charging you, right? I love Diane's point about a credit union, but implicit in that is that the profit in this business is huge. So when you have retirement, unless you have a 401k that you're doing for your entire company and you have employees, likely you should not be paying fees. Keep an eye out for that, right? And definitely stay away from anything that looks or smells like an insurance policy. Chances are it's not good for you. It's great for the broker, and they're going to love if you buy one, but you're going to regret it. I promise you. Last thing I would say on the technical end is think about index and age targeted funds. A lot of people say the next thing is they set up the account and they go, I don't know where to put the money, right? Warren Buffett, one of the richest men in the world, puts all his money in index and targeted funds. So it'll be a targeted fund. Typically, most retirement companies will say, I plan to retire in 2050, and it'll be a 2050, and they automatically adjust the mix for you as you get older. Statistically, they work wonderfully, and you just set it and forget it. And you just keep putting the money in, and you don't have to worry about exactly where it's invested. So please don't think that you're going to have to start watching CNBC or something every day and like becoming a day trader, right? Absolutely not. In fact, statistically, you are better off sticking it and just keeping it at that index fund or that age targeted fund and keeping it going. In terms of some resources, and you'll see those come out with the video, but there are some retirement pieces that we offer freely. If you're a childcare business owner, use them. If you're someone who is working with childcare business owners, like a coach, a technical assistance provider, or you just love, a childcare business owner in your life, you can share this with them absolutely free of charge and use it with them. Additionally, we actually created also a very simple to use app. And what we found after literally hundreds of interviews and coaching sessions with providers, there were likely like 4 answers that were typically coming up around business retirement investments for them. And so it asks you 2 questions, and at the end of it, you can get some recommendations on the types of plans you may want to be thinking about. We don't make any money off of this. We're not going to sell you anything. So please don't worry about any of that.
Gary, can you give us, what is the name of the website and the name of the app if it's different? We'll share all of them, but I want to make sure.
Yeah, it'll be on www.civstrat, which is our company, CIV as in Victor, strat.com/retirement. And you'll find the guides there, and you'll find a link to the app as well.
Great. Thank you so much.
And I would say, as far as any tips or advice, I would say make a plan. Make a plan, work your plan, save, keep your spread, pay off what you need to pay off as quickly as you possibly can. Downsize, some things are, you might want to downsize in several ways. I would also say, focus on your health, your mental health, your physical health, stay as healthy as you can. And, if you want, like some people will be doing, is phasing into another phase of a career. So those are things. The main thing is to take action, plan, save, and because as Gary mentioned, Social Security is not going to be enough to pull you through. You have to take in consideration, you're going to have, you own a house, you're going to have home repairs and maintenance and, all those kind of things. And Social Security payment won't be able to pay for those pop-up things that happen. So just now's the time to start. That's my tip.
Cheryl, do you want to share?
Oh, absolutely. So I think, and Diane mentioned it earlier, but I'm going to reiterate it again, work towards being debt-free. Don't have those car payments, don't have those mortgages, you know, that's extra income for yourself. I have my IRA. I only put $1,200 in that every year, $100 a month. But I have that option, and I go to my tax accountant at the end of the year and say, do I need to put in more in there for a tax break? Because I use mine as a tax break. If my savings allows, I will max out that contribution. You know, because I'm continually building up my savings. You know, so do that. So then also when I retire, I've got a couple little contingency plans also. I've become a CDA observer, so that, you know, it's not much, but you know, if you can go and do that. In our state, in Montana, we just recently have a substitute pool. I can go ahead and I plan on doing that, becoming a substitute for childcare. I will be able to work when I want and how much I want, you know, and then that way I'm still in touch in the field also, because I think trying to leave childcare is going to be very hard. You know, but it doesn't hurt to have a little bit of that contingency plan also. But my biggest thing also is, you know, go onto the Social Security website, you know, create your account, look at that statement of yours. You will get a reminder from them 3 months before your birthday that your Social Security statement is ready. You know, and go look and see what you're looking at right now. You know, and start making your plan.
Could I just quickly build off of one other thing that Cheryl said? You know, I think, you know, we had a lot of providers over the past couple of years who have come to us for tax advice after the year has closed, right? And there's very little you can do once the calendar year is closed. Retirement savings is one of them. You can do it up to April of the next year. You could also do it this year. So I know a lot of you who will be listening to this have gotten hit on your taxes because we've had this wonderful stimulus that's been glorious, but it's not something you can often spend fast enough, and you end up with a much bigger tax bill. Cheryl said, like, a lot of these different investments you can do last minute. Doesn't, you know, it's great to do it $100 a month, you know, or a week or whatever along the way, but you can also say, gosh, I'm coming to the end of the tax year. I haven't spent all that money. Typically, most of the stimulus programs will allow you to put it into your retirement, right? And that becomes a great way to pay yourself into the future with this wonderful boon that we've had. So think about those things before the tax year closes, or if we're in that first quarter, you know, up until April, you can still do it. But I would say, think about that before you get that tax bill and you go, oh gosh, I really should have.
That is wonderful advice. Thank you so much to Diane and Cheryl and Gary for answering our questions and sharing this rich discussion about retirement. We will make all of the resources available to you that we mentioned today. And we want to thank you so much for watching this and sharing this video with others. Please stay tuned for more opportunities to get your business must-know questions answered and valuable resources to run your family childcare business from NAFCC. Thank you.